like it was very immature. It was like,
For sure.
oh my God.
This already sounds like a fucking child.
Child. When people curse, right? Like they even use his name as like a
Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ. Like,
God damn it.
yes.
This is God having total control over everything. He saw what I was going to do to myself and knew that I was supposed to go forward.
Sit here and like, especially now that there's a camera in front of us, to sit here and act like I'm this perfect being. I am not. far from it. So we would consider ourselves Christians, right? We follow, Christ leads us.
I don't even know if I would consider myself a Christian. I think I'm just a Christ follower.
Let's get the show on the road.
Yeah. What's been on your mind? That's usually how we start.
That is usually how we start. I guess I'm a little like, I want to say nervous.
About this?
A little bit. Like, I think still getting used to the camera.
Yeah.
That's something that I told you about. But when I was on his podcast, it was kind of just like smooth. But I think it's just really about like where God is going to take it. Because I have no idea where he's going to take it. I have no idea where this is going to go. It's kind of just like a thought that popped up, and now we're actually doing it. So it's kind of just like, oh.
It's almost like you're standing on the edge of a diving board, and you know you can jump in and there's water there, but then it's just like, well, I remember how to swim. But you do know how to swim.
Yeah.
Like all of this information that we have is already sitting at the tip of our tongue. It's almost these limited thought patterns that we have within ourselves that prevents us from being able to actually take that leap, that jump into the water where we know that we can do what we have to do.
Ready to dive in?
Yeah, I'm literally, yeah.
Welcome to our podcast. I'm Dylan. This is
Bryan.
And I just want to like make this very clear. This is a new start. This is an idea that kind of just happened. So we're going to see where God takes it. Purpose of this podcast that we believe that we're trying to kind of just like, I guess have is spreading light to people that are living in the darkness, because we once lived there as well. We know what it's like. And for me, in my personal experience, that's where I found God. And I think he's the foundation of this podcast, because that's actually how we met. So to anyone who's listening, get ready, because this is going to be a long, long journey. I have no idea where we're going to go. I'm excited, but I figured the first episode of this podcast, we're going to give you guys a little introduction, a little background, talk about where we come from, talk about where we even met, how we met, and kind of just talk about our own personal experience with God. And hopefully it can touch some of you, if not all of you. And hopefully we can kind of just have a connecting sort of relationship between obviously us and then hopefully the people that's listening. So I guess starting, please.
Oh, me?
Yes, please.
Well, I had no idea who God was to me growing up. I never had a relationship with God. I never had any type of connection with God. It was never truly there for me because I didn't have that in my living environment. In the life that I had growing up, it was never there. It was never present. But I always, now that I can reflect back on it, I always knew that there was a presence there. I could always feel the presence there, but I never knew what it was equated to.
When you say feel the presence, like what did you feel exactly?
Spirit, the divine, just this unseen comfortability. It's almost like a casing that's around us, that's protecting us and caring for us. It was always there, but I didn't know what it was. I couldn't put it to words. I never knew what it was, but I always had this sense to it. But I also didn't have a sense to it because I didn't have any type of upbringing to it.
Yeah.
It's the reflection when I can look back upon my life that I knew that it was there. But when I was in those years of growing up, I didn't know it was there. I had no idea.
Yeah. I feel like that's most of us too.
I agree, especially if we don't have a background to the spirit of not I guess this is when we start looking at like the religious aspect of things, where
Mm.
the religious aspect is what conforms us to see the spirit, the essence, the eternalness, God in their religious spectrums of ways.
Mm.
Where when you break those molds and it's not actually there, you see that it's everything. It doesn't matter what religion you come from, because that essence of God, that essence of the eternalness, the essence of the spirit has always been there.
Mm.
It's just we decide to put labels on it and say this is what it is.
Yep.
This is the only thing that it can be because this is the religious dogma, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And it's just like, no, that's not what God is. God is this universal essence, and his love is in all of these religions.
Mm.
But it's man that decided to say that it's this, and this. This is only what God is. Why? That's the problem with the religious dogmatic ways.
Mm.
But when I was 17, because this is kind of the initial kick, I don't know why that scene from Inception just came into play, where they're sitting in the chair and the only way to come out of like that Inception dream is to push the chair and the person to fall back into the water to then like wake up out of that dream state.
Yeah.
That's what it was for me at 17. But then I still had to go deeper into darkness. But at that age, I found one of my soulmates, which I think there is many soulmates that we come in contact with throughout life. Intimate, friendship, family, they're all different soulmates to different degrees. But I found an intimate, never had sex with her or anything like that, but we were intimately in love with each other. And when I found her, it was just this whole life-changing experience, and I was just fucking this young stupid boy that had no idea what was going on with life. And then I met her, who had just recently gone through this rape altercation with my best friend's brother at that time growing up. And it was my second family. It was the family that I would go to drink at. It was the family that I would go to after sports games. It was always at that house that I would go to after everything and do everything at. So it was just a very interconnected weave of situations, from that's who raped her to that's where my second family was. But then as we developed more of this relationship, her and I, it was so unexplainable because of the relationship that we had, but you could feel it and you could sense it. And there would be times where I couldn't say certain things, I couldn't hold her certain ways without her kicking, screaming, crying in my arms. And this is 17 years old, where we're supposed to be in high school and we're supposed to have all these hormones running out of us, and we're supposed to be just trying to have sex and try to hook up with everybody and do this stuff and blah, blah, blah. And that's also what our teachings are inside this modern world, is at that age, that's what we're supposed to be doing. I had the reverse. So I'm trying to, I don't even want to say do those things, so that was never really in my nature, but like try to initiate like more of a hookup besides just making out and hand play and things like that. And it just wouldn't go anywhere because of what happened to her prior to us meeting, which I am so grateful for now, because that's what taught me all of this compassion and all of this love to give to people that are in these wounded states, because that was my initiation into love, was a wounded person that needed that care and that compassion. So as we progress further into it, she's now putting the dude up onto rape charges, rightfully so. And as that's progressing in further, I'm now seeing her lawyer saying, yes, it did happen, and then going to his lawyer and saying, no, it didn't happen. I don't like war. I don't like aggression. I don't like division. I don't believe in any of it, because I think it's all a fucking made up construct. The same thing as the religious dogmatic ways. I think all of that stuff is also a made up construct to keep us divided, to keep us away.
So both of their lawyers were pretty much getting in contact with you to see what your story was. Okay. So like, and you were what? You were 16, 17 years old. So how did you process that? Like, what was your process like? I was just, I'm that's why peace, not war is tattooed on me. Like, I don't like any of that stuff. So I'm trying to please both parties.
I want both sides to be happy. I want them to be in the place that they need to be, to know that like it's all gonna be fine, like it's okay. I didn't even know how to spell my name at that time. You know what I mean? Like when you really think about it, like 16, 17 years old, do you even know what your name is? No. And now you're asking somebody to speak to two different lawyers to say this happened, no, this didn't happen. And I was being conflicted within myself because I didn't know what direction to go for my own self. I just wanted everybody else to be happy. So it's just like, this is what I have to do to make these people happy. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm supposed to do, right? Everybody's supposed to be happy. This is what my thoughts were. Go further into it. Now, my parents want me to break up with her because they're afraid that she is now going to say that Bryan also and then put me onto charges. So then my life would spiral down because of that allegation. But I knew it wasn't going to take place. And then years down the line after, I guess we'll tell you now, she died. But after she died, about a few years after is then when my parents were able to really say that like we knew she wasn't going to do it, like she was never going to do that, but we were scared. Like my parents were scared for me because when you ever see a situation like that, that's like a diamond in the rough in the opposite direction. You know what I mean?
Your kid is involved too,
so they're trying to protect me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So and it took me years to forgive my parents for even thinking that. And then we got further into it. I was still seeing her behind everybody's back. My friend's back, my family's back. I was still seeing her because I couldn't. This is a soulmate. This is someone that I was supposed to be with. We get further into it, and now we're getting close to the trial. I'm very much synopsising all of this, but the friends at that time wanted me to go on stand to say, no, it didn't take place. And so did my parents, wanted me to go on stand to say, no, it didn't take place. And my parents put this thought, go back to Inception and thoughts into minds. My parents put the thought that friends last longer than love. That was the thought that they planted in my head.
Okay, so this guy was your friend at the time?
Yes.
So you were conflicted between, I guess, sticking up for your friend, sticking by his side through it all.
Family, not him.
Okay.
It was more so family. It was the best friend's brother who did it.
Yeah.
It wasn't so much him. It was more so the family.
Oh yeah. Okay. So it's your best friend's brother. Okay. So the lawyer that you were speaking to, it was your best friend's lawyer, or was it your best friend's brother's lawyer?
Best friend's brother lawyer.
Oh, okay. That makes okay.
Yeah. It wasn't the best friend who did it. It was his brother.
So did you go on stand?
I didn't go to stand because she died prior to the stand.
Okay.
So I was going to go on stand to say, no, it didn't take place because of being coerced from friends and my parents. But deep down in my heart, I knew it took place. And my parents knew it took place too. But that thought was friends last longer than love was something that they also believed in too. And I guess they still believe in it. But that thought ate away at me after she died for years. For years, it ate away at me. And I was always in search of this wrongful love that I knew wasn't true. It wasn't true love that I was searching. It was this void inside my heart that I was looking to fill. So we get a week prior to the trial, and I'm going to go on stand to say, no, it didn't take place, and then walk out of the courtroom and then go kill myself. I didn't want to be a part of this world. I didn't want to be a part of something that I know I was lying to.
Wow.
So I was going to go on stand to go kill myself afterwards. And then she died a week prior to the trial of a sudden heart attack out of nowhere. Healthy as a fucking ox, very intelligent, very beautiful, everything. But she had a hereditary disease on her father's side. And her father's side is Jewish, and some Jews don't do autopsies because of their religious beliefs. 4 or 5 people on her father's side passed away randomly. She contracted that same illness, that disease, and this is when you start going into the soul and other things too. But she died From stress for sure because of the situation at hand.
Mm.
But like I said, I was going to go kill myself for her to go forward if I was to go on stand.
It's crazy.
So this is where the divine intervention, soul connection comes into play, God coming into play. And this took me about 10 years to understand this. So this happened in 2008. It wasn't until about 2017, 18 is when I came into these understandings. And it was from this random person at a place that I was working at, and she was able to connect to the divine, connect to spirits, and able to connect to people that have passed away. Very beautiful interaction her and I had. But she knew Beth, the girl that passed away. She knew her name before I even said it. She knew the whole story before I even said it. She knew exactly what happened. And she said that Beth, died before her actual timeline was supposed to be up. That hereditary disease was supposed to kill her, but not until she was like 26, 27 years old. But because of what was going to take place, this is where timelines can be adjusted. This is God having total control over everything. He saw what I was going to do to myself and knew that I was supposed to go forward. So he took Beth out at 16, 17 years old in order for me to go forward.
Wow.
But if he didn't do that divine intervention, I would have been dead, and then she would have lived, but then 6, 7 years later, or whatever the time frame is, she would have then died because of that hereditary disease. So she was taken out prior so that I could then go forward. But when that took place, a whole 180 to my life. I was supposed to be dead. She was supposed to be alive.
Because that's what you had in your head.
Right. But God said, no, she has to go now so then I can go forward. And then when that took place is then when I went into doing all the drugs that I did. I did all the opioids. I was an alcoholic for many years, like just crazy into everything. But it was to destroy this thing. I didn't want this thing to be remembering anything. I didn't want to remember any of the experiences that I had with Beth, any of the experiences that I had with my family, anything. I didn't want to be a part of it anymore. I wanted to completely shut the whole thing out. And the best way to do it was opioids. So I self-prescribed myself and would buy the opioids, and I was still working and everything like that. But I would go out and get the drugs so I wouldn't have to feel.
At this point in time, did anyone know that you were doing
besides the people I was doing it with? No.
Okay.
Because I was still playing basketball, playing softball, lifting, marathon running. Like I was still very active. Like my body, and it still is able to. Like I can go into any like hallucinogenic and be perfectly fine. Like my body can handle it. Which is how I just built myself, really, or how God built me to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, nobody really knew. Like I would be nodding every once in a while. I would like nod out, but still working full time, still doing everything, still working, marathon running, everything like that. But the mind shut off. The mind was done for about 7 years. And then there was one day I was playing basketball and God came in and was just like, this isn't who you're supposed to be. Distinctly remember the voice. That's why like now I so clearly know his voice to what my inside voice is. Or if I come in contact with other spirits and other things like that, you can hear the tones of voices. You know your own internal voice, and you know when there's outside voices coming in that are not your internal voice. But then I know God's distinct voice because of how his voice came in and said something on that day. And I know his voice now. Like I clearly know his voice to me. And everybody has different vibrations to hearing God because of just how God can do things. So like you hearing God could be a totally different vibrational sound to how I hear God. We're all different in that way. Came in and was just like, this isn't who you're supposed to be. That day, cold turkey, the opioids, never went back to him again. And withdrawals like crazy. Now I can look back on it. It's one of the most beautiful times of my life with opioid withdrawal. It was so remarkably beautiful being able to move through that processing. And then when I came out of it, that was now like 24, 25. And then at that time, My buddy was living in San Diego, California. I packed up on a limb, just moved out there, couch surfed for a while. Him and I found an apartment. When we found the apartment, there was a massage school close by.
Mm.
I went to the massage school. I think I walked by it well over 500 times. It was a block away from where we were living. And went in and they gave me a breakdown. God, once again, that voice came in, was just like, go into the massage school. Okay. Walked into the massage school, and it was just from there it just started to unfold. And I wanted to go to school out there, but I couldn't go to school out there. Just God didn't have it in the timeline to do it. So then after 9 months of living out there, packed up, came back to New York, found the school that I wanted to go to. Lo and behold, first day of school was on my 25th birthday. So first day of school was my 25th birthday, and it was
interesting. I want to get back to that. I think that's interesting.
It was like a rebirthing.
Yeah.
It's a rebirthing into what I need to be and who I was supposed to become. And at that time, didn't have long hair, had hair just like you, short.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
short. You had a buzz
hair.
Cut?
Yeah, everything. I was faded, lined, everything. Yeah.
Shit, I can't even imagine it.
I was lined up, faded. Yeah, everything.
Do you ever plan on cutting it?
No.
No? Okay, I was gonna say.
The only way I'll cut it now is I do plan on doing a year of silence. Supposed to be doing a year of silence on my 35th birthday, which is next year. And if it does take place, and if I go to some type of monastery where they're like, you have to shave your head, that will be the only time I'll shave my head. Otherwise, no.
Okay.
Don't plan on doing it. Then when I was in school, first day actually, so I've taken college courses with anatomy and physiology, and nothing clicked. Couldn't understand any part of the science. And I took the course 3 separate times in college. Could not understand a thing about it. And then got into massage school, and I already had that worrisome thought pattern of, I can't understand anatomy and physiology. I've already taken this 3 times. I have to now take this in massage school. As soon as I started learning it in massage school, it all made sense. Every single piece of the information I learned from the previous 3 years, or the other 3 times I took the class, it all made sense.
Yeah.
Because I was applying it to the body. I was seeing the body the way I was supposed to see the body, not in a slideshow and seeing all this, and this is the mitochondria, this is how the chromosomes work, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. It's like I'm now seeing it to the body, and I can now make the connection to what it actually is. And then when I was in massage school and actually massaging, my teachers were always saying, like, Bryan, you're working with a lot of energy. I had no idea what any of that vocabulary was. All of that verbiage on that side of the world, of the Eastern side, I never had contact with it. I never knew what it meant. But they're like, you're pulling from different dimensions. You're pulling from different aspects of things. I was like, I don't know what this means, but that's cool. Progressed through. And after massage school, for about 2.5 years, almost every single night I would cry myself to sleep because of the amount of pain that I was in from working on people. So every day for 6 days of the week, five to 6 people every single day. So that's 25 to 30 people in 1 week that I was seeing, and almost every single night I was crying myself to sleep because I was taking in the emotional, psychological, spiritual, and physical pains that these people were holding. I was unconscious to the absorption that I was taking in. I didn't realize how much I was absorbing for 2.5 years. And I'm a stubborn asshole in this sense where I have to figure things out on my own. I have to process things on my own.
It's most of us.
I know. And that's what this is for now too. It's to be able to explain our own processing that you and I have gone through and seen things from a different light, because it's the more that we can see things from different angles, we're able to see the full picture.
Absolutely.
But if we're taking it only from 2 angles, we're only seeing a limited portion of it. But more equals the full picture. And I think that's what you and I have, I know that what we have gone through is we've hit so many different angles, a part of life, that now it's like, how do we bring this information, not just for our own selves, but how do we now share this to other people? Because that's the point of why we're all here, not just for this, but just for life in general. We're here to share this information that God has blessed us with because of the transmutations that we had to go through.
Yep.
We all had to go through it to then be able to share it to others, for them too to realize I'm not alone in this journey.
Yeah. None
of us are alone in this journey, but we see ourselves as alone.
Absolutely.
Because of the processing that we have to go through.
Yeah.
I started to understand things and how to move energy, how to cleanse myself, how to use different theories, how to use the natural elements of the earth around us, how to connect to different things to be able to cleanse myself after the sessions of the day. For the first 2 years, so that's about 4 years in, is then how I understood how to cleanse myself.
Was this before your come to Christ moment?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So in that time frame is when I was still learning like Hinduism and Buddhism and Taoism. So I was learning, and I'm a type of person that cannot memorize, or any of that scripture. I don't memorize anything. I apply what I'm reading to life. That's why I sucked at school. Like, I'm not good at definitions. I'm not good at memorizing things. I'm reading this, and then what these words say to me, I want to now apply it to life. I'm not here to memorize something to say this scripture from this text of this religion or this culture, blah, 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 or this quote from this person, whoever the Einstein to whoever it is, Rogan, whatever, that I'm not here to memorize that. I want to see these words, apply these words to then give these words. That's how I see reading stuff.
Okay.
And that's how it started with the Hinduism and Buddhism and Taoism and the Kabbalistic way, which is like ancient Jewish understandings, to then lead myself to Christianity, to Christ. And that wasn't until 30? No, probably later. It was more so like 31, 32 is when I started to realize that Christ was a figure. Even before that, I didn't know Christ was a figure. Like, I might have heard it in glances. I might have heard it in like just walk-bys, things like that, but never really understood the character or the figure that Christ is.
You have an interesting story, because not a lot of people have that same experience where they're like studying different backgrounds and religions. So like what made Christ stand out to you? What made Christ feel like, all right, this is the direction that I should be heading in or heading in?
He's the only one that put himself on the line for everybody else. It's the easiest thing.
It's the way, the truth, the life.
Right. Like, Buddha is fantastic. Like, his teachings are phenomenal. Like Lazao from I Ching, or however you pronounce it, like, his teachings are phenomenal too.
Yeah.
Like, very important moral and ethical and spiritual teachings as to what those figures gave us. But for someone to say, I will take on all of the pain for all of humanity if you believe in me or don't believe in me. What?
Crazy, man.
You know what I mean? Like, that goes beyond any of those teachings that those other figures brought to us.
Yeah.
But those teachings are still beautiful.
Absolutely.
Like, they're still important to life.
Yeah.
But to say that this person went that far to cleanse us, consciously and unconsciously to cleanse us, what? Like, he knew most people didn't even believe in what he was saying.
Makes me emotional, man, thinking about it.
But it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, he did something for us 2,000 years ago that's still living now, and that will still go forward.
His words are eternal.
Yes. Then that's the purpose of it.
Yeah.
That's the purpose of what he brought to us, is to realize that and that goes into the soul, right? The soul is eternal. Spirit is eternal. This thing that we're in is only temporary.
Yep.
So that goes back into this beginning of the conversation that we were talking about with the nervousness. The what is this going to be? Does it matter?
Nope.
Right. He's trying to show us that nervousness, and it could be a positive thing too. Like, nervousness is a good thing when it's used properly, like going into a sporting event, feeling that rush of something about to take place. But then are we going to allow it to trap us and not be able to actually set free and actually play the way that we're supposed to, or talk the way that we're supposed to? So the anxiety or anxiousness or nervousness can be good if you're transmuting it. If you're not transmuting it, you're almost keeping it inside of a cage, which is that cage is our physical flesh.
Yeah.
But when you transmute it to the soul will then exude it outwardly to allow it to actually proliferate into so many different directions.
We all find ourselves in the dark at some point. And it's so funny because I feel like most of us, if not all of us, find Christ or God in general when you hit rock bottom.
Mm-hmm.
When you're on the lowest point of your life, because that's where I found him. When you're in that lowest point, you just feel this, at least for me, I felt this pulling on my heart to kind of just start praying, start like seeking God, understanding who God was, who Christ is.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, like you hear about his name. You hear about him kind of growing up. You hear his name. People even like, when people curse, right? Like they even use his name as like a
Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ. Like,
God damn it.
Yes. It's so funny because now I kind of like cringe anytime I hear it.
Oh, so.
But like you become so desensitized to it like over the course of your life. But when you finally understand what Christ did, what he embodied, what he represented, what he did for us, that's when you kind of come down to this like, damn.
Yeah.
Like you kind of just, you feel free almost. But that's perfect because that leads me into my story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, growing up, my mother and her family, her side of the family, was always kind of religious growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my grandmother, my grandparents on my mother's side, they actually identify with Seventh-day Adventists. You never heard of that?
No.
I honestly, I don't really even know like the hints and
I didn't even know that was a
thing. That's what they identify with. But
what is that though? Is it in Christianity? Is it like another denomination?
To be honest, I'm not really sure. Have you ever heard of like Jehovah's Witness?
Yeah.
Or like it's almost like another variation of like.
So basically, using scripture and manipulating it into what you want it to be. Cool.
I believe so.
Like everything else.
I believe so.
Okay.
Again, I'm not super educated on it, but I think it's something along those lines. But so like I would go to church, and for some reason, it never resonated with me.
Mm-hmm.
It was something that always kind of like church or sinning or whatever it is. It was something that I always just strayed away from. Like I didn't want to hear it. It was something that kind of just. I always felt this fearful feeling. For some odd reason, like growing up.
Do you think it was because you weren't supposed to be there? That's
Maybe.
where you weren't supposed to find God.
Maybe. It was like there were so many times where my grandmother would just stop and she would be like, let's pray. And like, obviously when you pray, most people, they close their eyes, maybe even hold hands. And anytime I would be in that like setting where she would be praying or anyone would be praying, I would kind of just be joking around. Like I would have my eyes open, everyone has their eyes closed, and I would be like, oh God, like why are we doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. But like, it was something that I never took serious, and it was always something that I kind of just like frowned upon. It was just it just didn't sit right in my soul at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, kind of growing up, that was always kind of like my life. I would hear about God. Even my grandmother, who I'm very close to on my dad's side, she always had this strong connection to Christ. And she would always preach. She would always kind of like, she would also pray as well. And I would always joke around and kind of just like, okay. But it wasn't until last year where I was in my relationship at the time. And I was in love with her, super in love, somebody that I would at the time die for.
Mm-hmm.
I did everything. And it's so funny because we were just having this conversation the other day about idols and worshiping. And I felt like this was actually, like reflecting back on it and knowing the knowledge that I have now, I felt like she was somebody that I almost worshipped and idolized. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Because the things that I would do for her, like I put her above my family from time to time. Even money, and to be vulnerable. And I even told you this the other day, like credit. My credit was like 800. And then she never knew this. And I'm sure like if there's ever a time where she stumbles across this podcast, she'll know now.
Yeah.
But it's my truth. It dropped tremendously because like I was just paying for certain things. And it's almost like I fell into this worldly state of mind where in my mind I thought like, okay, this is the things that I need to do to like maintain this relationship and keep her happy. So I just spent my money recklessly, and it separated me from my mother most of all. Um, my even some of my friends. I'm sure you hear about stories of people getting in a relationship and then they find they separate from their friends. That was me. Um, but I was in love, and
it's amazing how much things were tanking from that relationship.
Yep.
Like you just named off like 4 different things that were tanking just from that one single
Yeah,
relationship.
but it was a me thing. I'm not
100%.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
it was
yeah,
just
yeah.
a me thing, you know.
That was your free will, your choice to go do those things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And she's an incredible person. I still have a lot of love for her. But there was always this thought in the back of my mind, like this isn't going to work. And it's so funny because even with your story, you were even thinking and considering about or committing suicide in my relationship. And I've never even told anyone this. In my relationship, there were times where I was just like, you know what? For some reason, I just feel like I'm going to die. Whether it's me, whatever it is, I feel like before I go out, I just want to just sit in this space where I can at least get that pleasure that I need or that I want. But it was never fulfilling. There would be times where I would have sex and that's the only thing I wanted in certain times, and I would get it and I would just lay there and sit there and I would literally just ask myself, like, what am I doing?
How would you feel after releasing? Like after the sex, like the release of sex?
I'm
guessing this is with her, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would feel empty. Like I still loved her. I still was in love with her. But like there were times where it didn't feel right. It didn't feel like this was something that I should be even doing. And yeah, there were even times where we were going through it, man. Like we were going through it relationship wise, and I would still, my brain, like it just reached a point where my emotions kind of turned off and I was just seeking the pleasure.
Yeah.
So then eventually it was always in the back of my mind, like, I feel like we're going to break up. And then ironically, this is the point I wanted to get back to. When you started massage school, it was right on your birthday. That's when we broke up. We broke up on my birthday. And you know what I mean? So
I see that.
When I reflect back on it, I always say to myself, like, I feel like this was my rebirth moment. Because on my birthday, it could have happened any other time but on my birthday. So then, obviously, fast forward at this time, I don't really know who God is. There would be times where I would pray to him before this happened, but it wasn't, like, I didn't even know who I was praying to.
Wasn't true.
Yeah, and I was praying for silly things like money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And then, so the breakup happened, and then fast forward, I was hurt. Like, I was in this very, very dark place. I was watching certain videos about, like, the red pill. How do you handle the breakup? How to get her back. And I was watching stupid ass videos like that, and I was always kind of just like, this doesn't even feel right. Like, and I was trying to do the no contact thing, and I kept breaking no contact. And without realizing, I didn't realize I was being selfish because she was in a period where she was healing as well. Right? So I'm the one who suggested no contact, but I kept breaking it. And I kept prolonging not only my healing experience, but hers. And then eventually it got to a point where I saw something online that I didn't like, and it broke me. And I remember I typed up this text message to her, and I just like, something that I'm not proud of. And then I sent it to her, and as soon as I sent it, I immediately regretted it.
Did you send like, I shouldn't have said that?
No.
Or nothing?
I just left it how it was.
Did she respond?
I don't even know, because as soon as I sent it, I blocked her.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
I blocked her.
Whoa.
But no, it's funny.
But have you talked to her since?
No.
She's still blocked.
Hold on, wait. So I sent the text message, and to just sum it up, I pretty much just said, this was coming from a place of hurt. I was just like, I just despise you. I wish I never met you. The whole.
Yeah.
And then, funny enough, the day after I'm talking to, I'm not going to say who I was talking to, but I was talking to someone that's close to me, a family member.
Yeah.
And I was explaining the situation. I was just like, oh my God, like I sent this message. I regret it. I should have never sent it. And at the time they were kind of just like, that's all you said. And I was just like, yeah, like that's all I said. Like, but I should have never sent it. And he was just like, I would have said something else. But then I kind of like dabbled into it. I was just like, what would you have said?
Yeah.
And then he created this whole text message that is quite literally the opposite of me.
Wow.
And then he formulated the text message, and I pretty much sent it.
To
So I unblocked her, and then I sent it.
Oh my God.
And I was just like, what? And then
what's going on?
And then as soon as I sent it, I was rereading it, and I was just like, why would I ever do this?
Yeah.
But funny enough, I sent it, but then I realized that she blocked me. So the text message didn't go through, which was a sign in itself from God.
Yep.
So in that moment, I was just like, I was telling him, I was just like, God, didn't go through. And he recommended sending it from his phone.
Did you?
And I was just like, do it. Sent it from his phone.
Oh my.
And mind you, Bryan, bro, this is not a message that I would ever come up with. This is not something that I would do or say. I don't want to. It was just like it was very immature. It was like,
for sure.
Oh my God.
This already sounds like a fucking child.
It's a child.
Like, what are you doing? You should have stuck with just blocking it the first time and never sending anything again, and not even going to another phone to send it.
Absolutely. And then when he sent it,
but isn't it funny what love does?
That's what
crazy. That's love.
You're blinded by it.
Love is so intoxicating in a good way, but it could also be intoxicating in a bad way.
In a very bad way. You just do a lot of stupid things.
Yeah.
So then after he sent it, immediately, I don't know, maybe it was God's voice, but I just felt this nasty feeling inside of me. And I'm getting chills thinking about it now, because I was just like, why the fuck would I ever send something like this?
Yeah.
This is not me. This is something that I would never ever say or do. Anyone who knows me, I even showed it to a couple people, and they were like, Dylan, what? Like, this is not even you.
Yeah.
Like, before even telling anyone that I didn't write it, one person was kind of like, did you write this?
Yeah.
And I was just like, no. They were like, I could tell. Like, why would you even send something like
that's
that?
wild.
So as soon as I sent it, maybe the very next day, I fell into this very dark place.
Makes sense.
And it was just like, so many voices kind of going through my head, like, why would you send this? Just a whole lot of shame, whole lot of guilt. But even before I even sent those text messages, I was already contemplating suicide because of how dark the place was. I went like a month without speaking to her. And again, I was praying religiously. I was praying consistently. But but
it wasn't really to anything.
Yeah.
It was almost like a blank slate that you were playing.
Absolutely.
Praying into.
Yep. And I was crying my eyes out every single day, up until that moment. The thing that I saw that kind of ignited those emotions.
Yeah.
And then, so after I sent that text message fell into that dark place, and this is when it got really dark. I was really contemplating suicide, and I was writing letters to my family, to my mother, to my dad, to my.
Do you still have them?
I have it in my phone. And I actually do still have the physical copies as well, because I wrote it in my journal. And I was writing those letters, and I can even remember some of the things that I said to get deep. And I said, let me be careful, because I don't want to cry. But
you're good if you do. This is the point.
Yeah, but I was pretty much just saying, like, I wanted to make it clear that it was something that no one could help. It was something that no one could have done. You could have said anything to me, but it wouldn't steer me away from it.
For sure. I know what you're saying.
And there would be days where I would kind of just like, okay, this is how I'm going to do it. There were days where my mom would just find knives in my room. And she was terrified, because she saw the place I was in. She saw how dark it was, and she in her mind knew I was experiencing those dark thoughts. And then when she would find the knife, she would be like, what the fuck is going on? Like, but I never said it. Like I would just tell her like I'm okay, I'm good, and
Mhm.
she would just find these knives, and I would always just be like, yeah, I was opening up a package,
Yeah. Where's
something.
the package?
Yeah,
No
where's the
one.
package?
Oh, somewhere.
Uh,
It's me. I'm the package.
but there was this one particular moment I was sitting at my desk, and I think this was God, because I was sitting at my desk and I had the knife, and I was thinking about all of the moments that I had with this girl.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about every single moment. I was thinking about all of the good times, all of the bad times. I was thinking about the message that I sent. And I'm sitting at my desk and I have the knife to my neck.
Mm.
And I'm like, I'm thinking about all of it and I have my eyes closed. And I'm just saying to myself, like, wow, like, it's almost like all of the memories started flashing right before my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And in the back of my head, I was kind of just like hoping, like, oh my gosh, like, if God is real, something's gonna happen to prevent me from doing this. And I kept saying that in my head. I was just like, God, if you're real, something's gonna happen. Something's gonna happen. And right as I was about to do it, for some reason, I just was overcome with so much emotion that I didn't even have the strength to do it anymore.
Mm.
I just started busting out crying, and then so much so that the knife just dropped out of my hand.
Mm.
And I was just like, because in my mind, I was thinking, oh, is someone gonna ring the doorbell? That could be a sign that he.
Now that makes me think. Did you ever cry in those time frames before that?
Yeah, I was crying. I was crying every single day. There was times where I was asking why God created me the way that He did.
Mm-hmm.
I was crying out. I was asking Him every single moment of every single day, like, why am I this way? Why did you create me to love so hard? Why am I like why did I get myself in this situation? Why did you have to do it the way that you did?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I so hurt? Why aren't you here right now? And I would ask these questions every day, and the silence would kill me.
Mm.
And then in that moment, when I was overcome with so much emotion, I just couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
But then I would still plot, and I was still thinking like, okay, I'm gonna do it this day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna do it this day. How can I do it? Can I just? Is it gonna hurt if I do this?
Right.
Is it gonna? Should I just try and overdose on my?
Isn't it amazing? He gives us what we ask for, and then we still tempt ourselves further.
Yep. I was. There were times where I was even.
We're so fucked. Man. We're so fucked.
There were times where I was like, oh my god, like, people are. My mom has blood pressure medication or other medications. I was just thinking like, what if I just take
A lot of
a lot of them and go to sleep?
See ya.
And I know my mom is probably gonna watch this. This isn't me. All glory to God.
No, we can see that now. I mean, it's if you're able to talk about this with a smile on your face, that's when you know you've overcome that darkness.
Yeah.
That I firmly believe that because I could talk about the whole experience with Beth and how she died, and I for the like first 5 or 6 months I couldn't even say her name without crying.
Mm.
Her name couldn't even say her name without crying.
Yeah.
Then to even say like what our relationship was, that took another fucking 5 to 6 months for me to even not cry without talking about the story that her and I had.
Yeah.
To then be able to say it with a smile on my face. And now I know if you're able to say this, the experiences that you were going through with a smile on your face and you're still laughing about it, it is not something that's eating away at you on the inside.
Yep.
At all.
Yep. And I would just. It was in the month of November at this point in time, and I remember I was kind of just like, okay, this is what I was like dealing with. I was just like, okay, how am I gonna do it? How am I gonna do it?
It's interesting because I think that's when the most in that time frame of the year, those last like 3 to 4 months, is when the most suicides take place or the
Really?
most deaths take place.
Wow.
Think about all the holidays that are there. It's all loving holidays.
Yep.
Or whatever holidays
Thanksgiving,
are.
Christmas.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's all about like family being together, presents, and all that stuff. It's and people that have gone through troubled times, and now you have to go through that last portion of the year with all of that stuff. People just get depressed and sad and all this stuff because of that.
You know what? It actually reminds me. I texted. I shouldn't have done this, but I texted my friend, two of my friends, and I remember I was just like, just in case anything ever happens to me, here's the passwords to my social media.
Mm.
Log into them, do whatever you have to do just in case something ever happens to me. They were freaking out. They were like, what the fuck is going on?
Wow, you were in it.
I was in it. But when I sent that text message, I sent it, I think it was in the evening, sometime in November. And I sent it and I was just like, okay, it's official now. The next day I'm doing it. Because I'm not going to just send it just to get a reaction, like, oh, let's see what they're going to say.
Yeah.
No, at that moment I was just like, okay, let's see. I'm going to send it, and then the next day I'm going to do it. And the next day happened, and this was during a time where, like, when most people are depressed, I feel like a lot of people have trouble sleeping.
Yeah.
Wasn't me. I couldn't wait to go to sleep every single moment of it, like of the day, because that was the only escape I had from reality. The only escape. I would just anticipate it. Like, sometimes I would even pray, like, God, just make me sleepy, because I'm still on the fence about doing it, but just make me sleepy. I just want to go to sleep.
And then when you woke up in the morning, you probably hated life.
I did.
Yep.
As soon as I opened up my eyes, I would just go back to sleep.
Go through it again.
Yeah.
Another day. Here it is.
I would try and go back to sleep. I'd be like, God, please, no, let me go back. Let me go back. And again, I have a dog. I had to wake up every day and try and take him out. Like, I wasn't leaving the house. Like, in the month of November, I didn't go to the gym once. I didn't go outside. I didn't do anything, man. The only time I would go outside was to walk my dog. So anyway, the day came, and I kept seeing things on my phone. I was scrolling through TikTok at this time, and I kept seeing spiritual related content out of nowhere. Never was on my algorithm. Never was something that I searched or anything. Out of nowhere, spiritual related content. Everything about God, everything about Christ. And I saw this one podcast, or not podcast, I saw this one video, and they were saying, well, like, why don't you just get a Bible? Like, why don't you just get a Bible? If you like, you can't pray. It literally related to what I was going through. You can't pray if you don't even know who God is. Who are you praying to if you don't even know? So they were like, just get a Bible, get a Bible. That's how you start your relationship with God. So, and this was, I think, around November 15-ish. Around November 15th or November 16th. I just looked at my mom and I was just like,
of last year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of last year. And I said to her, is there any way you can get me a Bible? And she was just like, yeah. At this time, I was broke. I had nothing. I literally had all of the money I spent on, you know, and she didn't even know at the time. I would kind of just like keep this, you know, yeah, I got everything. I have everything. But I would always put myself more and more in a hole. So my mom ended up getting me a Bible, and then I opened it up, and I went on Google, and I was just like, where do you start? Where do you start? Like, where do you start in the Bible? And the thing that popped up was, why don't you read the book of John? And I read the book of John, and at first I was just like, okay, what does this mean? What does this mean? And then I just kept reading it. I was just like, wait, this is who Jesus is? And then I started reading the book of Matthew. And the book of Matthew was really, because you had the Sermon on the Mount. And that's when I was just like, wow, this is who Christ is. And I just fell in love with reading. And I've never been a reader. And I just fell in love with it. And I would just put my phone down and I would just be drenched in the word. And that's when I came across the Sermon on the Mount. And he was saying, pray for your enemies.
Everybody. Love the people that hate you the most.
Yeah.
Like, even if they fucking put spells and hexes on you and cast demons at you, if you still love them, God is going to overpower any single thing that they're trying to put at you. Because that's how strong God's love is.
And then he was talking about how you shouldn't judge people. And I remember in that time, that's all I was really doing. Especially with, you know, the girl that I had ended things with. And I remember I was just so caught up in things that she did. And I was judging her without realizing that there was so much that I needed to work on. And when I read that out, and I've always been one to reflect and analyze things that I've done wrong in my life, but I was also balancing at that time because of the hurt and the pain that I was carrying. Like, oh, well, she did this as well. But it was just like, why am I holding on to that so
Right.
much?
You're part of the picture
I'm
too.
part of the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And he just gave this beautiful message, and I fell in love with the idea of Christ. Fell in love with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something where it was one of those things where it was like, it felt like it was too good to be true.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that Christ was saying, like, pray about everything, you know,
Yeah.
if you're hurt, pray about that person, love that person still, you know, all of these messages that he was saying, I was just like, okay, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. And I felt so good doing it.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing. I was praying for her. I was truly like giving God everything that I had. God, please bless her. Please watch over her. Please protect her. Please make sure that she's safe. Please watch over her and everything that she does. It felt amazing, but there were times where I was still conflicted because I was questioning him, like, is there a reason why I'm doing this?
Mm.
Even though it felt pure that I was doing it, it was still like, oh,
Why?
God, why?
Mm-hmm.
Is everything that I'm doing right now authentic? Are you actually real, Jesus?
Mm-hmm.
Are you listening to everything that I'm saying? Am I just crazy and I'm talking to myself?
Right.
And that's kind of like where that relationship started. But he saved my life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I give him credit for everything, but because just reading his words and then applying it to my life
Mm-hmm.
changed everything for me.
And that's why it changed you, is because you applied it.
Mm,
You weren't just reading it to read it, you applied it.
yeah.
That's that clear distinction of what we see from a very big populace of our societies. Like, people just read things and they can cite it. It's
Mm,
great. It's so wonderful that you can do that. I'm not diminishing it at all. But are you actually applying it?
mm,
That's when you're really living like Christ,
mm.
which is what he wants us to do, is to live like him.
Yep.
It's because you're applying what he taught us, and by what he taught us to live it, and us living it is then providing it to other people. That's how his word continues on eternally, is because we're living it.
Yep. And I remember I told you I was filled with a lot of shame and guilt. Hearing that he still accepted me, forgive me,
Mm-hmm.
it was everything. And that's what I needed. Because in those moments, I still knew I needed God. There was something on my heart that was telling me to call out to God.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that I knew I was seeking his forgiveness so much, that's all I was praying for. God, please forgive me. Please forgive me. And just knowing that, like, he accepted me, he still embraced me, he was willing to redeem me, resurrect me, you know, kind of carve out this new life path for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's when everything started to click. Wow, everything that happened in my life happened for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, us breaking up on my birthday, wow, it happened so I can find God.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, like me even sending those text messages, although I should have never sent it. Wow, if I never sent those text messages, would I have gotten that Bible? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
No. So like everything happened for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I started kind of like, as soon as that started clicking, the month of December, that's when I really just started to grow in my faith. Okay, you know what? I even tried going to church, but the church doesn't really go. You know, we'll get into that. But
Mm-hmm.
I just started reading more of the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
But then I started to realize the more and more I did it, the more and more I would kind of doubt.
Mm-hmm.
This is too good to be true.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way I can just have this relationship with the creator of the universe and just like, because that shame and that guilt would still come from time to time. Like, no way God loves me and cares about me and he
Because it
accepts me.
wasn't fully healed yet.
Yep. So, you know, fast forward, kind of just like took the month of December, January. Um, oh, this is also where he blesses me too, because he put me in positions where I was dead broke, and he gave me opportunities to work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working now. I have money again. Although I don't worship money, it's still something that you have to live off of,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I'm in a position now where I'm blessed, and there's still so much more that I haven't seen yet. Um, so fast forward, you know, when I started working here at the gym, that's where I met you.
Mm-hmm.
And to tell this story, I'll tell my perspective, and Bryan will tell his. I was quite literally finding myself praying to God about hopefully putting someone in my life that is also spiritual, that also has a connection to Christ, that also has this wisdom that I can even learn from, that I can kind of just build with. And one day I was working, and I was pretty much sitting down, and as I was working, I was reading the Bible. And I think it was 1 Corinthians that I was reading. And then I saw you walk in to the gym. I think this was the first time I ever saw you.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, and I even work out too, so it was kind of
I
just
mean,
like,
I only signed up probably about the same time
really.
frame, yeah.
So yeah, this is the first time I ever saw you, and I was reading the Bible, and I look up, and you're walking in, and I'm like, I look up once, and then I look down, but then I'm like, and then I look up again. In my mind, I'm like, this guy looks like somebody, and I can't put my finger on it. I literally can't, but I literally remember. I don't know if you remember this. I remember complimenting you. I was just like, "Yo, man, your hair is incredible. Like,
Yeah.
you get it like that."
Yeah. I do nothing.
Yeah, you were just like, exactly. You just said, I don't do anything. It was just like, okay, man. Well, it looks good. And I go back to reading, and I think you might have gone on the treadmill.
Something. Yeah.
And I'm just back into the word, and then you come toward me, and you're like, yo, like, what are you reading from the Bible? And I told you, and that's when we just had this conversation, and then it clicked. I was just like, that's who he looks like. He looks like Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
No disrespect to Jesus, but I was just like, what
It's a compliment.
Yeah, I was just like, what I envision Jesus looking like. That's what you look like.
Mm-hmm.
It's the hair, it's the beard, it's the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And I said that to you, and I meant it. And then you were like, I hear that all the time. And then when I saw that you were wearing the cross, I was just like, okay, so he definitely has some relationship with Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hopefully, because some people just wear it. But it's when we started having that dialogue and that conversation, and we were talking about the word, and we were talking about some of those things. I think the first time we actually had that conversation, first time we met, we talked for like an hour.
Something like that, yeah.
So, what was your perspective?
When I honestly don't remember the first interaction that we had. Like you knew it better than I did. But then I remember when I asked you like what section of the Bible you're in, and then you told me, which I don't fully remember, but seeking is what came to me. Is that you were seeking a lot. You were searching for something, and which we always will be, I think.
Absolutely.
We'll always be seeking for something, because that's the only way that we'll be able to really engulf God in his entirety, is by seeking more of him. But I felt this overwhelming feeling of, I'm looking for more of what I need in this life. And I resonated so deeply with it, because that's what I was going through at certain times of my life. And now I don't really live that way. I'm just here living.
Yeah.
I don't, not to say that I don't search and seek, because I do that, but I know that now everything is always going to be provided at that divine timing that it's supposed to be. So that sometimes when you're over seeking, you're actually slowing yourself down from being able to be provided what's supposed to be provided. But if you seek patiently, everything will be provided exactly when it's supposed to be. It's seeking patiently is how everything gets to you. But yeah, it was that initial conversation that led into an hour and a half, whatever the time frame was. And it's almost every conversation past that has always been beyond 30 minutes. And there's times it's just like, I gotta go. And we then end up having another 25-minute conversation after that.
Yeah.
But we've expressed this to each other, where it's just like, you don't find connections like that where you can go into conversation and just weave yourself through in any type of verbiage that it is, and knowing that the person is going to be open and responsive to it, and looking to communicate more into it, not talking about a subject and then hits a brick wall. It's just like, there is no brick walls when we're communicating to each other, which is the way it's supposed to be. But to get there, you have to go through limitations. You have to go through these dark moments of your life. But there's still people that have gone through those dark moments and that are still not open. And I think that's more so from the soul's experiences
Mm.
of, and this is now going into like reincarnation, but souls the soul's depth is dependent on the experiences of the reincarnations of the self.
Mm.
So if you have a limited reincarnations, the depth of the soul is not going to be as deep, which is where you might find those brick walls with people.
Mm.
But some people that have more depth to their soul from the reincarnated states, those brick walls are removed because they understand as they go into the darkness, they're removing things that have actually been preventing them from not having those brick walls there.
Mm.
But it goes back to the depth of the soul. And that's why I know you and I have very deep souls, is because there is no brick walls. There is no limitations in our conversation, which is why we can tangent off into anything
Mm.
and know that it can go somewhere.
Mm.
Where you could have conversations, like I'm saying, with people and it's just like, blah, that's the end.
Yeah.
It's just like, well, that's the end of this conversation because there's something that they have not gone through yet in this life or previous lives to allow them to move through that type of conversation.
Which leads me into my next question.
Yeah.
Do you think, because this is something that you touched on in the beginning,
Yeah.
do you think that we are soulmates?
Yes.
You think so?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's how you know too with
Put
the
that
connections.
Put that out there.
That's how you know that there's connections, is how ones connect with each other.
Mm.
It's all about connection. Everything is about connection, from getting your job to finding your intimate soulmate to finding a friendship to learning about certain information from something or someone. It's all about connections and how somebody got there. And when that line of connection is clean and clear, there's a reason why it's clean and clear, is because of the soul's connection from previous lives of also knowing each other. Like, we 100% know each other from previous lives. I don't think it's just one life. I think it's lives. Which is why we're able to just, on our first interaction, to go to the depth that we did from the jump to then leading us to this situation right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one thing I want to put out there, listening to this podcast, watching it, I truly encourage anyone who's listening to have an open mind.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to dive into a lot of deep discussions, conversations. You know, obviously we would consider ourselves Christians, right? We follow Christ leads us.
I don't even know if I would consider myself a Christian. I think I'm just a Christ follower. And I thought about this too recently, because I was listening to somebody else and they explained it, and I can't put it to the exact words that they did, because Christianity or Christian has how many denominations?
True. When I say I'm a Christian, I truly just mean that I'm a follower of Christ.
That's what I would say I am.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even say I'm a Christian. I would say because Christian connects to me to Christianity.
And this is where spirituality and religion kind of comes in.
Right. And that's where I'm a follower of Christ.
Yeah.
Christ is the person that I follow.
Yeah.
And that's not anything that would be inside of the denominations of 44,000 of them, because they alter the words and they change things to the perspective that they want it to be.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't even think I would consider myself a Christian. I would consider myself a Christ follower.
I think it starts with the relationship, right?
Yeah.
Like, and this is something that I was saying on Santos's podcast. You don't have to go to church to pray. You don't have to go to church to form a relationship with God. God is spirit. God is everywhere, right? God is with us at this very moment. You can pray to him. You can speak to him. You can speak to him the way that I'm speaking to you right now, obviously with respect. But you don't have to do certain things to form that relationship with him. And I think that's where religion and spirituality differs, right? Like, religion almost, I feel like there's a fear factor to religion, right? You associate, okay,
fear God. Why am I going to fear something that's all love?
Yeah.
That's where I get tripped up. And I do understand the fear thing of it, because it's just like, I don't want to do wrong to my overseer parent. You know what I mean? Like, that is our overseer parent. Like, I don't want to do wrong to my overseer parent, because it's just like, if I do wrong, I might get put into timeout. But would God put you in timeout?
You know what I think of it? I think of it like, when I hear somebody say fear God, And this was something that I was also trying to incorporate into my lifestyle.
Yeah.
I think the way that I picture fearing God, I don't think it means being terrified of him.
Right.
I think the way that I at least think of it is, think of a father as a disciplinary in your life.
Mm-hmm.
You're not terrified of your father, but you respect him to the point where you're not willing to cross that boundary.
So shouldn't we say respect God, not fear God?
Yeah,
Right? Because like that word of fear already has a connotation.
true. Yeah,
That's where it should be respect God.
yeah,
Don't fear him, but respect him.
yeah. I would say so as well. But I think that's where you could also have a healthy level of fear,
True.
because
Very true.
you could fear your dad. You can have a healthy level of fear of your dad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not gonna mess with him because I know if I do this, he's gonna beat my ass.
Oh,
like,
and I know those times.
Yeah.
There was times that my father would pick me up by my shirt and pin me to a wall because of me acting like an asshole. And those are times it's like, well, I know I can't push myself that far anymore. So yeah, I guess you're right. Okay, so there is a healthy level of fear.
That's how
That's what you
at
should
God.
look at it.
Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense. Now.
because I think you think about the Creator,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, and we do all the time, and
Yeah.
that's where His grace comes in, right? But like, you wake up every single day, and to sit here and, like, especially now that there's a camera in front of us, to sit here and act like I'm this perfect being, I am not far from it. So I'm not. I'll make that very clear. I'm not gonna sit here and act like I'm somebody, because I am far from
That's
the person
hysterical.
that I want to be.
Don, the PT that works here, I don't know, we're downstairs talking. He's just like, I feel like you do nothing wrong. Like, you're perfect. And I was just like, what? I was like, okay,
absolutely
bud.
not.
I was like, dude, I'm flesh just like you. Like,
Yeah.
I do a lot of wrong things that I shouldn't be doing.
Yep.
He's just like, but all the things that you talk about, the things that you do, you seem like you're just so like so perfect. And I'm like, no.
See, and that's something that I want to make very clear to people, because I get that too.
Mm-hmm.
But that's something that I try and make very clear. When I receive those compliments, it's like, I'm flattered. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. But that's not.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think when people have that perfect sort of perception of you, that one time that you fuck up and they see it, they're like, oh my God, like,
You're the horrible person.
you're horrible. I was never perfect to begin with.
Right.
And that's why we all need Christ.
Don't put me on a fucking pedestal.
Yeah.
Nobody should be put on a pedestal.
Yeah.
We all walk this earth together. That is the common ground that we're all on. Every single one of us walks the same way. You might be in a wheelchair, but whatever the case may be, you're on this earth with me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, we're all walking together the same fucking way. What makes us any different?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing.
Yep.
Nothing at all.
One of the things that I struggle with is lust.
Okay.
Struggle with lust, and I think that's most men, even women.
Yep.
But it's something that I struggle with, and I think I've had women tell me, "Oh, Dylan, you're a gentleman. You're so respectful." You don't even. Yes, I am. But you don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
I
can be a dirty little joker at times too.
Right?
Yeah. And I know what you're saying too, because I get that as well. Where it's just like, you're so sweet and so compassionate and considerate and things like that. And it's like, yeah, but I also have my devilish ways in me too. True. Where it's almost like, wow, when you said lust, I think of lure. So like you're casting out like this rope, and you're leaving it out there, or a fishing line. You're leaving it out there, and you're waiting for one of these females to latch onto it, and then you just reel it in at whatever speed you want, right? Now, because of my previous experiences of me being that lustful lure of casting out that fucking fishing line, I don't even want to have a fishing line in my hand anymore. Like, I just want to lay in the boat.
Yeah.
I just want to lay in the boat, and if a fish jumps into the boat, cool.
Yeah.
That's how I see it now. I am not casting out any lines. I just want to be sitting in the water and converse with all the fishes.
Yeah.
I want to have a conversation with all the fishes. I want to see who is, out of these fishes that's in this body of water with me, who is the most compatible with me. Who can I get emotional with? Who can I get intellectual with? Who can I get spiritual with? Who can I get deep with? Without even having that intimacy. I don't need that anymore. I've already had my intimacy to the max for myself already.
Yeah.
I want to see who this person is on all of these other levels before intimacy.
Yep.
Because if all of those other boxes check off, that intimacy is going to be through the fucking roof.
Yep.
Because you can feel the chemistry between each other.
And what is that? That's living life in accordance with the spirit instead of the flesh.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Living life in accordance with the flesh typically leads to death.
Right.
And that's me. Right? Like, it's something like when we think about temptation, I mean, you can be tempted in regards to sex, right? You can be tempted in regards to anything.
To money.
Like anything that...
To fame, to
yes,
big houses, to
anything,
big cars.
Yep,
Yeah.
Anything that could be considered worldly, you could be fall to. And I know for me, it's something that I'm still dealing with, especially in regards to my relationship with God. And this is something that I think I spoke to you about the other day, or that I texted you. This is where the devil comes in, right? Because he can lie to you and he can tell you, oh, you know, living in accordance with Christ actually means that you're locked in this jail cell. It doesn't bring you freedom. The same way that indulging in worldly things does, right? Especially when you're living in the world for so long, it's hard to then separate yourself from it, right? Like, even think about social media. Very difficult to just, at times, I've done this now, thankfully, by the grace of God, but it's been so hard to kind of just separate yourself from social media because then you have that fear of missing out factor. You're so indulged in the world, seeing what everyone else is doing, that it's hard for you to kind of just like go about on your own path and focus on what you need to focus on. So like for me in my relationship with God, sometimes it could be a little difficult because you're making that balance. Like, oh, I just connected with this girl. I want to be intimate with her. But if I do that, then that might separate me from God. But in reality, if I'm pleasing my flesh, that then opens up the door for the devil to walk in. But if I'm pleasing my soul, if I'm feeding my soul, if I'm doing things that I know may not feel good in the moment to my flesh, but I know that afterward it's going to be pleasing and it's going to be peaceful to my soul, like why wouldn't I do it? And sometimes you kind of get conflicted with that because it's kind of like self-control, discipline. It really doesn't feel good. It's uncomfortable. Going to the gym. Who the fuck wants to go to the gym every single day?
Not me some days.
No.
But you know you have to.
And that's where like self-control, discipline, living life in accordance to the spirit, that's where it comes in, because that actually does give you peace of mind. That gives you that, like, I mean, think about having, let's just say, unprotected sex with a girl. It feels good in the moment, but then you have that overwhelming...
Oh, fuck. Did the pre-cum happen?
Yep.
Did I pull out fast enough?
Like,
did I get it out quick enough?
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Is it past the ovulation stage with her? Am I okay? Fuck.
Am I going to get that text or that call? Like,
now you have to sit on edge for the next several weeks to be like, oh, fuck.
Did she get it? Did she get the period?
Yeah.
It's like exactly
what... Woo! She got the period! Let's have sex while you're on your period now! Yeah!
It's like...
fuck, we're stupid.
It's like in the book of John, Jesus literally explains this perfectly. He says, the devil...
We're so dumb.
It's like the devil literally comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Yeah. He'll lead you down this path where he wants you. He'll lead you down the path where the wolves are. And then as soon as he leads you there, he'll run away.
Yeah.
To your, like, he'll watch you destruct.
And then just laugh on his way back.
And then laugh on his way back.
Got him again, fucker.
But Christ is the opposite. He's willing to lead you down that path. And if there is a pack of wolves, guess what? He's there with you. He's not leaving you just like the devil did.
And that's that mentality when you have those mornings that you wake up not wanting to come to the gym. Christ is there with you as you do that. And then being able to use that, this is where you have to be able to use philosophies in a multitude of ways. So if you know that Christ is with you in the mornings that you don't want to get up to go to the gym, he's with you in every single experience that you're inside of.
Yeah.
So if you are... and this is something that I still have trouble with, and I'm getting better at it, with like my parents. Like they're having this complaining, pessimistic, just stupid conversation. I get irritable on the inside. So I'm like, why are we talking like this? What is the point of it? Brings us nowhere. So I get agitated on the inside. And when I'm applying that philosophy of when you don't want to get up in the morning and you do it anyway because Christ is with you and you know you're going to feel better after the end of the gym, the same thing is, why not just feel good even if they're talking about pessimistic things?
How do you tap into that?
By knowing that you can change your thoughts. It's the changing of thought. Once you change your thoughts, those agitated things aren't there anymore. You realize that, and this is where I'm trying to see my parents as my greatest teachers across the board, because they are, love them to death. They're the opposite of me in so many different facets of life, that the opposer, the opposition of the way you know you're supposed to be living is in the environment that you're living inside of, makes you stir crazy.
Yes.
And it makes your thoughts be uncomfortable, but you know that your thoughts are the conductor of your energy field of who you are. So if you have control over your thoughts, even when you're living in the opposition of the environment that you know you don't want to be inside of, when then you do live in the environment that you do want to be inside of, it is amplified that much more, because you've overcome something that was trying to limit you the entire time.
It's a tough one.
Very much so.
Because the question is, how do you even start? How do you start? Because in actuality, we do have control of over our thoughts.
Correct.
But the question is, how do you take that power back? Because it can seem like your mind is in control at times, and you're trying to make that balance. Like, no, I'm in control. How do you start?
I think the first thing is recognizing your thoughts, observing your own thoughts. So that's where it's like training in programs, right? Like, you've trained yourself to have these negative thoughts whenever they start talking about this stuff. So you already had the training inside your head to start going negative when they start talking about these subjects. So then you being able to step back to observe your own mind, your own thoughts from the programmings that you've done from years before to get to this point, to now look outside in to be like, oh my God, I've been doing this for so many years. I need to stop that. So it's observing your thoughts in the moment of hearing these conversations take place, to then work backwards to where it started from, to then go forward to not have it be a part of you anymore. And that was a post that I just wrote about today with our life experiences shape our biology. So that backward flow, you have to go back to the origin of where it started from. You have to go back to where these thoughts first originated from, to how they got to this point in this moment, observing your own thoughts now. But you can't start here. You have to start back here to then rewire all of these connections back to here. So then when you're now observing your thoughts, you're not having negative thoughts anymore.
You shift your perspective.
But you have to go back to the original insertion or the origin of that thought pattern that created this negativity of, oh, I'm so agitated with them talking about this. Like, I've heard this so many times over. Well, where did you hear it so many times over? Where did that thought process start from?
Give me 1 second. We kind of just flowed naturally into everything. And there's still so much I want to talk about.
Oh, there's topics that I, like, you brought up, I guess we can jump back in. You were talking about when you first got the Bible is when you realized how to pray. But before that, you weren't really praying. I never really prayed before getting the Bible too. When you said that, I made that connection within myself. Like, I read all these other philosophies of the Hinduism, Buddhism, like I was saying, but I never really prayed. Like, I didn't know how to pray. I didn't know what I was praying to, because I didn't pray. And then when I got the Bible, it's like something opened up in me. It clicked, and it's just like, oh, this is how I pray. And my ex-girlfriend, her family prays before dinner. Every meal they pray before dinner. We don't do that in my house. I do it now, and I eat by myself, even inside my home. Like, I'll cook my own food, but I'll sit there and I'll pray and I'll say what I have to say, whatever comes through me in that moment. that's how I started praying, was through my ex-girlfriend, is how she and her family were devoted to praying before the meals.
Mm.
And then I started to apply that to everything now. Like I could be sitting out in public and I'll just start praying. Like before I
Out
feed my
loud or in
dog.
your head?
Both.
Mm.
Both. Whatever. It doesn't really make a difference to me. But even like before I feed my dog, I don't do it with my cat because cats are hard to like tame to sit and not eat yet.
Yeah.
But before I feed Hestia, like I'll have her sit, I'll say a prayer, and then she knows when I say amen is then when she goes to eat.
Really?
Mhm.
Wow.
As soon as I say amen, she'll go to eat.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, I think most people have this misconception of how to pray or
Mhm.
what prayer actually is.
Mhm.
And this was me at one point. You feel like you have to like do this ritual almost like, oh my God, how should I pray? And it wasn't up until I started like seeing the Bible that you can really pray any way
Anyway.
that you want. It literally says pray in spirit and truth. What does that mean? Are you praying with a pure heart? The same way I'm talking to you is the same way that I can talk to God, as I
Correct.
said before.
Correct.
You can talk to him at any given moment, any given time. You can pray in your head. You can pray. He just wants a relationship with you. It's the same way you have a relationship with anyone.
Mhm.
You talk to them, you get to know them, and you get to know him by reading the word. You get to know him by listening to his voice,
Mhm.
right? And that's still something that I'm struggling with. Like, I haven't gotten to the point where I believe I can discern his voice. I'm still learning. But I think in due time, it's gonna hit me at some
It
point.
will, and that's the point of divine timing.
Yeah.
It's that's like we're saying before, where you seeking too hard can prevent what is actually meant to take place.
Mm.
But if you seek patiently, seek with a calm heart, not a raceful heart, that openness from the divine will flow through the way it's supposed to.
Mm. Yeah, I think praying is important. When I was in my darkest time, man, and this is when I found Christ, there would be times where I would just sit there and like I would pray about something as simple as being grateful.
Mm-hmm.
God, thank you so much for today. Thank you for literally just I just went outside today. I walked my dog and I just looked around. I looked at the trees. I looked at
Isn't
how
it
green they
beautiful?
were. It's so beautiful, God.
Yeah,
Thank you
life
so
is so
much.
beautiful.
Thank you for giving me another day to experience this life.
Mm-hmm.
You can take me out at any given moment, and yet I'm still alive. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there were times where I was just praying about everything, and that's what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
He wants you to pray about everything. When you're in your darkest moment, he wants you to pray.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in your happiest, most joyful moment, right? Like you're dancing, you're rejoicing, he wants you to pray. So I think in every single moment, you can find something to pray about.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny that I'm saying that now, but there's times where I find it difficult to pray. You know, it almost feels like, oh my God, like I feel so broken to the point right now where I don't even know how to say what's on my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you know already, it's still like you still want me to pray,
Yeah.
but it's like God, how can I?
Right.
I don't even know how to speak. So that, I think that's something that I struggle with at times, and then I'm still learning how to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And I think that's how we end it.
Yeah.
We end it with knowing that wherever you are, no matter what you're doing, you're always connected to God. That He's always there, that He will always be there. Through your quiet times and your loud times, it doesn't matter. He's always going to be there.
Mm.
Knowing that His presence is with us and that He's always with us is how we find the comfort, we find the joys, we find the happiness of everything that's happening within our lives and the lives around us,
Mm.
is because He's always there. So once we start finding that comfortability of His love in all things, we're able to then find that prayer that is meant to be spoken from within and spoken to the without
Mm.
at all times, because His love is everywhere.
Amen.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you guys for tuning in.
Mm-hmm.
This was a hell of a podcast for the first one, especially. Nothing was planned. We pretty much just flowed into conversation. For the people that are going to be listening, watching, I just I'm excited to see where God takes us. I'm excited to see where we go, and I'm excited to form even a relationship with whoever's listening, watching, um, because you guys are going to be here from the very beginning, and we're going to see how far we can take this thing. So I appreciate you guys, and thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Yep.
It's a good